Hi guys and welcome along to the pod. I'm your host Zayn Nabbi. Today we have a crackerjack of a talker. The African Super League, yes, it's back on the agenda. That's because CAF's 54 member associations recently voted to give the organization's executive committee permission to move forward with plans to introduce a Pan-African Super League tournament. This is not a new subject. It was something that was first mooted by FIFA President Gianni Infantino when he outlined his vision for an African Super League in November 2019. CAF's new president, South Africa's billionaire Patrice Motsepe, is certainly keen to make this a reality. To discuss today is former PSL winner Courtney Freese, a man who's played in the CAF Champions League, and our associate producer, Alasdair Howorth. Good morning, gentlemen. I hope you are both well. Courtney, we certainly want to get your thoughts on this, but I'm going to start with Alasdair today. Alasdair, let's rewind to last week's meeting. What happened at the CAF Extraordinary General Assembly in Cairo? Break it down for us.
Yeah, so they, as you said, they had an extraordinary general assembly in Cairo with members from FIFA present, both Gianni Infantino, the president, and Arsene Wenger, who's kind of the head of football development for FIFA, as well as the one who's really been pushing this concept of a biennial World Cup. And so they announced two things there with the executive committee, and the first was that CAF would be the first continental federation to back FIFA's proposal for a biannual World Cup. But then the second one was this announcement that they will be going forward with the African Super League, which, as you said, was announced first by Gianni Infantino last year, but now they're actually kind of going to go through with it.
So the question that'll be on everyone's lips is, which teams will participate? It's been mooted that there'll be 20 teams. It will be a closed competition. I know there's not a lot of detail that we know right now, but Alasdair, what can we glean? How will this tournament work?
Yeah, so like you said, they haven't announced anything in terms of actual details. They've just announced that they're going through with the tournament. But they've kind of let pieces here and there kind of drop. And so what we do know, or what we think we know, is that there's going to be 20 permanent teams that will kind of be a part of the tournament year on year, and then there'll be 4 others that would qualify regionally. So again, we don't quite know what those 20 teams will be, but we have a pretty good idea of some of the ones that will definitely be in there. You know, the heavyweights, Al Ahly, Zamalek, Raja, Wydad. You know, you have Sundowns from South Africa, surely, you know, TP Mazembe. Interestingly, the only club that actually has announced that they will be a part of this tournament is Simba from Tanzania. Their CEO, Barbara Gonzalez, is the only one who's actually come out and said that they'll be a part of it. They've mentioned that to join the league, that to be one of those 20 teams, you'll have to invest $20 million US dollars into the competition. So we're not sure, you know, what clubs will have the money to do that, because there's some huge clubs that potentially might not have the money. But in terms of structure, I think it's intended to run alongside domestic leagues, at least as far as we know, not kind of taking them out. So, you know, Al Ahly and Zamalek wouldn't be leaving the Egyptian Premier League, but they would be playing this as a replacement for the CAF Champions League. But again, we don't know whether they will replace the CAF Champions League and Confederations Cup entirely, or if those two competitions will still exist, or if only one of them will exist.
I guess another question on a lot of people's lips will be, how will this benefit African football? What was said about that?
So I think we're looking at twofold kind of improvements here. African football has really struggled in the last couple of years financially and commercially on the continental stage, you know, massively in part to the collapse of the Lagardère deal, which happened a few years ago, and the kind of media blackout that's happened since then. So there's been very little money being generated by CAF competitions. And so the idea is that it will put together a stellar competition of the best teams in Africa and will generate money and start creating income, not only for the Super League clubs, but clubs within their leagues and clubs and competitions across Africa. That's kind of Mosimane's kind of commitment, is that this will benefit not just the clubs involved. And then the second thing is to improve the quality of the football, saying that actually if we bring together consistently the best clubs in Africa, bring together proper investment, and we kind of put this all together, actually will be making African football start to compete again with some of the other continents, because at the moment, club football in Africa is definitely lagging behind not only Europe, but some of the other major kind of continental federations. So it's kind of those twofold of improving football, both on the field, but also making African club football really financially and commercially viable.
Thank you for explaining all of that, Alasdair. Really useful to know. Courtney, we're going to come to you. You're a man who won the Premier Soccer League in South Africa. You've also played in the CAF Champions League. Is this a tournament players will be excited to participate in?
Well, Zayn, let's not look at the platform that they're speaking about firstly. Is the Champions League an exciting tournament? Absolutely. Players enjoy it, players love playing in it. It involves a lot of travel, but what it also brings in is it brings more of the squad into existence. So you have a team that, i.e. Sundowns, competing in the Champions League, but then also competing on the home front as well. So you need a big squad, youngsters coming to play, opportunities become available. Yes, it's a fantastic tournament to be part of. Also, funding that comes into the club. But the level that is being spoken about at the moment is not really hitting the high notes with owners as we would have thought. You know, I spoke to the ever brilliant Mr. John Cometas a few weeks ago.
He's the owner of Cape Town City, correct?
He's the owner of Cape Town City, and he was dead against the idea. He said he can only see bigger clubs benefiting from this, and in smaller clubs very slowly being phased out within their own leagues because players moving to these bigger clubs for more money as well as for more prestige. So he just said it takes the local competition away, but gives a greater focus on this huge competition. Now then, I think Alasdair mentioned this a bit earlier, and I'm just bringing something politically into it. Fantino has said that he's going to be throwing, is it 1 billion, am I correct? American dollars?
That's correct. He wants to invest $1 billion in African football.
Okay, why not invest it now and help poverty now? Because is there any poorer country or continent around? You know, so it's just men with power wanting more power.
You've already mentioned what John Cometas said to you. I know we speak to owners. Those who are going to be involved want this because they potentially see it as a platform. Others who might be on the periphery don't. As a player, Courtney, do you think this concept of 24 teams playing in a Super League format will improve the quality of football? I'm just talking about standards on the pitch here for a minute.
Absolutely, Zayn. You must remember, this will be the best playing against the best regularly, gaining more attraction from European teams. Obviously, that is going to improve things. But sometimes, and there I go back to one of my psychologists that I had at university who coined the phrase, sometimes the best is not always the best. You know, is a concept that's going to improve players. Also give players more money in their pockets, and then also put them on the world stage a bit more. Yes to all the points you just raised. But the players and the leagues below that are not going to benefit. This was the owner's perspective. I fortunately share the same perspective.
Got that. Something that was so prominent when Europe was talking about their own Super League was the fans. We've spoken about the players. We've spoken about insight from the owners. But one of our regular analysts and the editor of Kingfut.com, Ahmed Yousef, had this to say about the African Super League and how this could potentially play out for fans.
So as I've said before, I'm not kind of the biggest fan of this African Super League project. I think it's solely driven by on financial reward for bigger clubs and a way of generating more income, forgetting completely about what the fans want, which is to kind of see their clubs playing in local derbies against their local teams. And we saw here in the European Super League the outrage with those clubs who joined them. Their fans went onto the streets. You saw how they went to Old Trafford and tried to break into the stadium. And I worry here with the African Super League, fans will be overlooked simply because of the enticement of greater financial rewards for those bigger clubs, and we will forget about the smaller clubs. My other concern is that there are some ulterior motives here. Infantino and Wenger have come over to the CAF General Assembly in Egypt. They've laid out their plans, and my question really is whether how much input there's been from African football federations. And I feel that Infantino has kind of made this $1 billion promise for Project Africa just to really get CAF to vote for his plan of having a World Cup every 2 years.
That was Ahmed Yousef, the editor of Kingfut.com. Courtney, you have some thoughts on this?
Well, Zayn, this is a very funny thing. You being in America at this point in time, which made me think of this example. I was watching Michigan State college football yesterday. And
they beat Ohio.
They beat Ohio. Well, they beat Ohio. But did you know how many supporters were in the stadium?
Probably close to 100,000.
Over 110,000. Over 100,000. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
This is college football. Now, there's a good example. That level of audience and competition is still there because the people believe in it, and the major franchises haven't moved away. This is my example I'm making. The Pan-African CAF tournament that they're looking at won't allow smaller teams to still have that buy-in from the supporters that love the smaller clubs, that are associated with the smaller clubs, that have the affection and the affinity with the smaller clubs. They slowly start to dissolve. Then the league is only about Kaizer Chiefs, Pirates, Sundowns, and maybe Cape Town City now and again. So just a relevant example to exactly where you are geographically.
Thank you, Courtney. When the European Super League fell down, it fell down because fans were unhappy. Fans protested. There was a unified approach all across Europe to it. Alasdair, do you think we could see that kind of reaction on the continent?
I think probably not to the same extent. I think because the Super League is taking on a different form, in Europe, it was taking a form outside of FIFA, outside of UEFA. And so there was another dimension to it, whereas this is kind of established by CAF and by FIFA. So I don't think there'll be quite the same aggression, but I do think there'll be some kind of backlash, because I think like Courtney is saying, for clubs that aren't going to be a part of this, they stand to lose so much. I think about in East Africa, I think about the Tanzanian Premier League. I think the fastest growing league in Africa. They've done brilliantly over the last few years. But now suddenly, if Simba, who have been the giants, but no longer have to even compete to qualify for African football, for continental football, it completely kind of devalues the competition in the Tanzanian Premier League, because for them, they could come 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and they'll still be there. Whereas you have the likes of Yanga and Azam, who are the ones competing, and they're still trying to get Champions League football, but suddenly you're completely devaluing the product of domestic leagues. And those are the leagues that have teams in them. You look at other leagues, like, say, I'm from Kenya, and you look at the Kenyan Premier League. Suddenly there's no hope of any Kenyan Premier League team ever being a part of the Super League. How much does that increase the value of Kenyan football? And I think fans are going to struggle with that. As a if you're a Gor Mahia fan, you're not going to want to cheer for Simba in the Super League. No, you want Gor Mahia to be there. You don't. And so I think you'll really struggle to find buy-in from fans who aren't already fans of those clubs, and you'll struggle to find buy-in from the wider African kind of fan base. And so I struggle to see how it will kind of take off in terms of fan engagement.
For a competition to be successful, you need rivalries. So if Al Ahly are in there, you need Zamalek. If you've got Raja, you need Wydad. Otherwise, you don't have the rivalry. And if you talk about the South African context, if you put Chiefs in there, you need Pirates. So these are the rivalries that competitions are built on. I guess my question to both you gentlemen, and this is something that came up with fans when the European Super League was announced, is what happens when your giant in your country or your region is propping up the middle table or not qualifying for the key playoffs, if they are playoffs or knockout rounds, or they're not near the top of the table? Does that not devalue your brand? Does that not devalue your club? Does that not impact on fans supporting you? The fact that you might be Kaizer Chiefs, who are always competitive in South Africa, or Orlando Pirates, who always have a big following, but suddenly you're not sitting near the top of the table, you're sitting closer to 18th, 19th, or 20th in the Super League.
I think that could be a realistic position. As you know, South African teams, besides Sundowns, don't really do well in Africa. So that could be a realistic picture. Now, as you know, as South Africans, we are struggling with the way our national team is going. That'll just make supporters feel even more low about their team if they are struggling in this Pan-African League. I cannot see the benefit. I don't understand why a supporter would want it. I can understand why an owner and an agent would want it. Oh, I can see an agent rubbing his hands. Oh, I have got deals from so-and-so, PSG, everything just rolling in. So excited, blah, blah, blah. Because you're not worried about the small man in the street. Now, what if you were traveling week in, week out, Barocca supporter? Now, all of a sudden, your finances don't allow you to travel to Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Egypt. So now you start thinking, well, I'm going to start supporting the team in my neighborhood. So there you go. It starts to break down the affinity. As I said, it's a power-driven thing. By men with power who always want more power.
Yeah, I mean, I think coming off of that, like Infantino and Motsepe were saying that the people who are against the Super League, they're afraid of losing power. But like you're saying, it's the ones who are going to be entrenched in power, who are going to keep all the money, who are going to keep this. I mean, I think that's, for me, the biggest thing I struggle with the Super League is how do you see the money translating and the performance across the continent? How on earth is, Eritrea or, football in places like that, or even, not quite so insignificant, but if we look at Botswana as a country, they have the Jwaneng Galaxy, who are in the Champions League for the first, time this season, and that's an incredible achievement for them. And that's going to bring the spotlight onto them. But how are they going to benefit from the Super League if it kind of starts? Because they wouldn't have a hope in the world of getting in. But they've, through the kind of qualification to the Champions League, they've been able to get onto this, and now they have a platform for their players, for their coach, for everyone to really thrive and kind of bring the spotlight onto them and, get those moves to bigger clubs.
Gentlemen, thank you for the robust discussion. This isn't one that's going to go away. And if you're listening out there and you have a thought and you have an opinion on this, please hit us up on our social media accounts, OTW_podcast, if you want to reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram, or go and like our Facebook page on the Whistle Podcast. We want to hear from you. Are you excited to see the heavyweights of African football collide on a regular basis? Or are you worried that this competition will kill local football? Let us know what you think. We would love to hear from you. But before we leave and say goodbye, we also have the winners of our Curry Court giveaway to announce. Yes, that was Ryan Moon, the South African international's favorite restaurant to eat in Courtney Freese's hometown, Pietermaritzburg. He rates the mutton curry very highly. And thank you to Curry Court for coming on and giving us some meal vouchers. The winners, drum roll please, are Lungani Zama and Vilma Swales van Rensburg. Guys, we will be getting in touch with you to give you the details on how you can claim your food. Courtney, what would you order on the menu? You've eaten there.
That's hard. Mutton curry with rotis, with the carrot salad, with chilies, and then I've got to go with a spa letter, the red spa letter drink.
Sure, Courtney, that is amazing.
Well, listen, as that.
Sure. Well, listen, we will be in touch with you, Lungani. We will be in touch with you, Vilma. We'll make sure you get those vouchers. Well, guys, that's a wrap for today. Thank you for the discussion. All the best, and we'll see you next week.